Comment. Thank you very much. Let's see. I understand we have a case to reconsider under agenda item 3. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. Commission Appeals is requesting to resubmit case number 2401643. This case was originally voted on docket 39 on September 24th, 2019. It was not a pulled case. After the vote, but before mailing the decision, it was determined that a majority vote had not been achieved because 2 commissioners dissented. Therefore, Commission Appeals requests permission to resubmit the case on a future docket to allow clarification of the vote. Commissioner Alvarez?
I agree.
Commissioner Dimerson?
Agree.
Mr. Chairman?
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now consider tax liability cases under agenda item 4. I believe we have tax cases on docket 41.
Yes, sir. We have 3 tax cases on docket 41. The first case is TD 190480419. Commissioner Dimerson.
I agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
TD 190670619. Commissioner Dimerson.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Last case is TD 190690619. Commissioner Dimerson.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Item 5. We have no fair housing cases under agenda item 5. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. We do not have any wage claim cases pulled for additional discussion on docket 41. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Is there a motion for the remaining wage claim cases on docket 41?
Yes, Chairman, I agree with staff's recommendation in regard to the remainder of the wage claim cases, but for those designated on this list.
Second, we accept staff recommendation on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 41, except for those cases shown on this list.
All right, I agree to accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 41. Let's move to agenda item 7 in consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 41. Proceed when you're ready.
Thank you.
Beginning with case 2547, Commissioner Alvarez.
Excuse me, please give the whole case number.
I'm sorry, case 2382547, Commissioner Alvarez.
Yes, ma'am. The claimant's MR should be granted. The claimant testified that she was last absent to attend doctor's appointment. The claimant's MR provides additional information regarding her medical issue and appointment. This evidence was not previously presented and could change the outcome of the case because it further strengthens the claimant's argument that her final absence was medically necessary. As such, we should grant the claimant's MR.
The Commission should deny the claimant's motion for rehearing. The claimant did not provide a compelling reason why she did not submit new evidence earlier. Because the claimant did not meet all criteria for a successful MR, we should deny the claimant's motion for rehearing.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
Short form dissent.
2398275, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed on the work separation. The employer was out of the country and left his son in charge. The claimant and her family lived and worked on the employer's premises. The employer's son was unstable and sent violent and threatening messages to the claimant, her husband, and her daughter. The claimant called the employer and complained about his son, but the employer took no action to address the situation. The claimant was in fear for her life, and she therefore called the police and left the job. She quit with good cause connected with the work. Because the correct employer in this case reported base period wage credits, our ruling should be added to change the employer's account. Modify the AT, change employer's name and account number, no voluntary leaving, add chargeback.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant agreed to wait for the employer's managing member to return from a trip in order to discuss her concerns at the workplace. The claimant later reversed course, abandoned her job, and did not discuss her concerns with the managing member after he returned from his trip. As such, she did not afford the employer an adequate opportunity to address her concerns and quit without good cause connected with the work. In addition, the employer's name and account number should be corrected to reflect the proper last employer. A memo should be sent to UIO and CS regarding a possible wage credits issue. in the case should be resubmitted on the chargeback issue following the results of a wage credit investigation on wage credits from 2018. We should therefore modify the AT decision, voluntary leaving, change the employer account name and number, memo to UIO and CS regarding possible wage credits, resubmit the
Additional wages.
short form dissent.
240-4408, Commissioner Demerson.
The AT decision should be reversed because the claimant's statements are self-disqualifying. The claimant was discharged for engaging in a verbal confrontation with a nurse while on final warning. According to the claimant's initial statements, during the argument, the claimant raised her voice in front of several witnesses and was disruptive. The claimant also testified that she told the nurse to shut up. Based on the claimant's own admissions, she did not make a sufficient effort to remove herself from the conflict and instead escalated the situation. Because the claimant was on notice that her job was in jeopardy, her actions constitute misconduct connected with the work. We should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision in this case should be affirmed. The claimant was a long-term employee who was confronted by a coworker. The coworker initiated the conflict by yelling at the claimant repeatedly, even as the claimant tried to disengage from the incident. The employer had no first-hand testimony to establish any misconduct by the claimant. The evidence was insufficient to establish misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Reverse the AT. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
240-6175, Commissioner Demerson.
And because the record has not been adequately to render decisions, the claimant testified that he was not told at the time of hire that he needed a valid Texas license. However, the employer did not stipulate that the license needed to be from Texas, only that it needed to be valid. The claimant stated that he had a California driver's license, but was not asked at the hearing if the license was valid during his employment. In its appeal to the commission, the employer submitted new documentation, including a copy of the claimant's out-of-state license, which indicates that he may have been working with an expired license for the most of his tenure with the employer. The employer also provided the job posting for the claimant's position, which contains a requirement for a valid driver's license. This new information is clearly relevant and should be considered before we render our decision. Thus, we should rehear this case for submission of the employer's new evidence and to further develop the record regarding the validity of the claimant's driver's license during employment.
I would affirm the AT decision. The employer discharged the claimant because he did not have a Texas driver's license and supposedly was not available for after-hours jobs. The employer provided no evidence of a specific act of misconduct. As to the claimant's driver's license, he was allowed to drive for over 2 years without providing a Texas driver's license and was not given a deadline by which he was required to obtain one. Evidence did not establish misconduct by the claimant. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear the case to determine whether the claimant had a valid license from either California or Texas at the time of separation.
240-8722, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant's assignment ended because the claimant was on light duty restrictions due to an on-the-job injury. The claimant's last assignment could not accommodate the claimant. The market manager admitted in testimony that she and the claimant discussed his availability to work and restrictions on his availability. The claimant's discussion with the market manager established that he reported his availability for work. As the claimant left his final assignment due to his medical restrictions, the employer's account should be protected from charge. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, MBI, void adequate response issue.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision because the claimant did not report back for reassignment after the end of his assignment as required by the employer's policy. The claimant quit without good cause connected with the work. We should modify the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, sever the adequate response issue.
Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback MVI.
We're okay with that.
And just for clarity, voiding the adequate response issue?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
2411839, Commissioner Demerson.
The AT decision should be reversed. The claimant should be disqualified whether this case is viewed as a discharge or a resignation. If viewed as a discharge, the weight of the evidence shows that the claimant was working for another employer and soliciting the employer's customers. The claimant's denial of working for another employer while on vacation is not credible. Exhibit 3 shows that the claimant had an email address with the competitor's company's name, and he sent an email from that address while out on vacation. The claimant initially told the claims examiner that he sent this email. His testimony to the contrary is not persuasive, as it appears that the claimant is changing his statements to remove a disqualification. Thus, misconduct was established based on the evidence presented. If viewed as a resignation, the evidence shows that the claimant quit to accept another job. As such, we should reverse the AT decision. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response. In the alternative, as the employer's appeal to the commission states that it has new evidence to present, I would agree to rehear this case for admission in consideration of the employer's new evidence.
The decision should be modified, no misconduct chargeback. The employer gave inconsistent testimony that the claimant quit, while the claimant provided credible testimony that he was discharged. As such, the greater weight of the evidence indicates that the claimant was discharged for being at the client's location while he was on vacation, because the employer believed this was evidence that the claimant was working for a competitor. However, the claimant simply took time off of his vacation to service the customer in connection with the work for the employer. The claimant was not working for another company. Therefore, the employer has not shown misconduct. Modify the AT, no misconduct chargeback.
Modify the AT, no misconduct chargeback.
Short form consent.
2412960, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. Both parties provided numerous witnesses. One of the employer's witnesses confirmed that she sent a text message to the claimant, which is in evidence, and in which the witness admitted that HR told the witness what to say in her statement, and the witness was upset about lying. Given the improper influence by the employer's HR department, as described by one of its witnesses, the employer's witnesses are not more credible than the claimant and her witnesses. The claimant denied that she was chit-chatting and denied refusing to follow supervisor's instructions. The claimant worked for this practice for 8 years before the named employer purchased the practice and started discharging employees because it was overstaffed after the merger. The evidence in this case is insufficient to establish misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, void chargeback ruling.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The evidence established that the claimant was told repeatedly to stop talking and to get to work, but that she disregarded her supervisor's instructions. Since the claimant refused to follow instructions and was disruptive to the workplace, the claimant mismanaged her position of employment. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, void the chargeback ruling.
My vote is to hold and resubmit on a later docket as a companion case with the coworker who was dismissed under similar circumstances.
I would agree with Chairman.
2413832, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision is fully supportable. The claimant was discharged after multiple serious errors in her work. The claimant had been with the employer for more than 2 years, which indicates she had been able to perform her job duties to the employer's satisfaction. As to her final mistake, the claimant admitted that it occurred simply because she was distracted. Making sure that the correct month is stamped on vital records documents and that the correct birth certificate is provided to a customer are simple tasks. Because the claimant's carelessness and negligence resulted in continued errors, and she had been warned for similar mistakes, the claimant mismanaged her position of employment. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer, not billed.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant's mistake was caused by her medical issues. The claimant provided documentation supporting her need for an accommodation and discussed an accommodation with her employer. As the claimant's mistakes were caused by her medically verified illness, she should be qualified for benefits. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, reimbursing employer, not bill.
Short form dissent.
2414930, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. I agree that the claimant filed a late appeal to the work search determination. With regard to the job separation, the claimant's final absence was due to his chronic illness, which is not misconduct connected with the work. The employer's account should be protected from charge. Modify the AT late appeal to the work search determination. Work search not eligible 5519 to 51819. No misconduct, no chargeback, MBI.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. I agree that the claimant filed a late appeal to the availability determination. As to the job separation, the claimant's prior warnings for his attendance issues put him on notice that his job was in jeopardy. Furthermore, the employer advised the claimant that he could request an accommodation and that he could also avail himself of job protection under the FMLA. The claimant did neither. Because the claimant did not take available steps to protect his job, his continued absences constituted misconduct connected with the work. We should affirm the AT decision, late appeal to the availability determination, availability not eligible May 5th, 2019 through May 18th, 2019, misconduct, no chargeback.
Modify the AT. Untimely claimant appeal to availability determination. No misconduct, no chargeback, MVI.
You're okay with that? That's fine.
2415748, Commissioner Alvarez.
The record is insufficient. I agree that the claimant filed a late appeal, but the Commission can assume jurisdiction as early as June 22, 2019. The AT failed to take testimony on the reporting issue. A review of the Commission records is insufficient. The claimant had a right to provide full testimony on the reporting issue to determine if it should be closed earlier. The case should be remanded for testimony on reporting issue.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. Because the claimant received the determination at issue but did not appeal during the appeal deadline, we do not have jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits. Modify the AT decision. The claimant filed a late appeal, reporting not eligible June 2nd, 2019 through July 20th, 2019. Correct the error on the beginning date of the ineligibility.
Modify the AT. Untimely claimant appeal. Reporting not eligible June 2nd, 2019 to July 20th, 2019.
Short form dissent.
2416010, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be affirmed. The claimant was discharged for making a threat or being dishonest about making a threat on a call on customer service, to customer service. The employer produced neither the call nor the transcript. The claimant denied that he had any threats or misrepresented his call to customer service. The claimant purchased a freezer from the employer that malfunctioned, and he was understandably upset when he spoke with the customer service. There is, however, no evidence that he used inappropriate language or threatened the employer. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. During a call to customer service, the claimant made statements that were contrary to the employer's best interest. When questioned about this, the claimant denied making such statements. Because the claimant had been warned that misrepresenting his remarks to the employer would result in his discharge, the claimant's less than accurate statements constituted mismanagement of his position of employment. We should reverse the AT decision. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Affirm the AT. No misconduct, chargeback.
Perform dissent.
2416038, Commissioner Demerson.
The AT decision should be modified. I agree that the employer filed a timely appeal. As to the job separation, the claimant testified that he was out sick for about a week and his position was filled by the time he returned to work. Thus, the claimant was separated from employment when he stopped performing services for pay. Because the claimant stopped working due to illness, I agree that he was not discharged for misconduct. However, the employer's account should be protected from charge under medical separation analysis. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision. Timely employer appeal, no misconduct, no chargeback, MBI.
I'd agree to that.
I concur.
2419527, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant, a manager, was discharged for fraternizing with a subordinate employee. The employer's manager handbook provided that engaging in non-work related activities with team members could result in disciplinary action, including termination. Given the nature of the non-work related activity, two employer witnesses testified that the claimant and the subordinate employee were at a bar having drinks together. The enforcement of the policy was reasonable. In addition, managers are generally held to a higher standard of behavior, and the employer's concern that such non-work related activity could indicate favoritism was a legitimate one. As such, the claimant's actions constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant was discharged after she gave an employee a ride home after they worked on off-site location. The employer has a policy prohibits any type of relationship between managers and subordinates, and expressly prohibits giving a ride to a subordinate. Under longstanding Commission Precedent, Appeal 1457-CA-71, the Commission determined that a rule prohibiting employees from associating outside of work was unreasonable and against public policy, and that there could be no disqualification for violating such an unreasonable rule. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
2420291, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI. The claimant missed work with notice because of severe back pain, which kept her in bed. This was an ongoing issue, and the claimant had already been referred to a specialist, but couldn't get an appointment with the specialist until after her discharge. The claimant had also previously been on FMLA for chronic back pain, but had exhausted her leave. As the claimant's absence was caused by her medical issue, she should be qualified for benefits, and the employer's account should be protected from charge. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, MBI.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant's attendance log and filed documents reflects that she continued to incur attendance issues after receiving a final warning for attendance. As such, her actions constituted misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
2420392, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. An unfavorable determination was mailed to the claimant on April 24, 2019. The claimant faxed in additional statements after the determination was mailed, which is sufficient to constitute an appeal. Rather than forward this correspondence to the appeal tribunal, UIO and CS reopened the case and issued what it called a corrected determination. The determination, however, is identical to the initial determination, and it serves no purpose other than moving the goal line when the claimant had already filed a timely appeal to an unfavorable determination. The claimant's appeal should be deemed timely and in the case resubmitted for merits testimony.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant delayed filing a timely appeal because he did not want to file it on a weekend. Because this does not meet any of the exceptions to the timeliness rules, and there are no good cause exceptions to timeliness, the claimant's appeal is late, and we do not have jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant filed a late appeal, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, correct the employer name and account number.
I agree the employer name and account number should be changed. Modify the AT, timely claimant appeal, resubmit for merits.
2422184, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. Section 207.049B of the Act provides that severance pay does not include any remuneration received by an employee under release of claim or settlement agreement entered into between the employee and the employer based on the alleged violation of Civil Rights Act 1991. The claimant in this case hired an attorney who argued on the claimant's behalf that the employer violated the Civil Rights Act by engaging in age discrimination against the claimant when they laid her off. Through negotiations with her attorney, the claimant and the employer agreed that the claimant would receive 25 weeks of payment in exchange for the claimant signing a separation agreement and release of claims. Per the provisions of Section 207.049B of the Act, the payment made to the claimant did not constitute disqualifying severance pay because the payment was made pursuant to a release of claim and settlement agreement between the parties based on the employer's alleged violation of the Civil Rights Act. Reverse AT, no severance pay disqualification, no overpayment.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant did not establish that her servant's agreement lump sum payment was conditioned on any of the non-disqualifying elements in 207.049B of the Act. The claimant testified that the payment she received represented 25 weeks of pay. As such, the claimant was properly disqualified for the time period in question. We should therefore affirm the AT decision. The claimant received disqualifying severance pay from June 2nd, 2019 through November 23rd, 2019, overpayment of $1,521.
Affirm the AT. Severance disqualification from June 2nd, 2019 to November 23rd, 2019. Overpayment.
Short form dissent.
That was the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 41.
All right, thank you, Ms. Miller. Do I have a motion for the remaining UI cases on docket 41?
Yes, Chairman, I agree with staff recommendations in regard to the remainder of the unemployment insurance cases, but for those designated on this list.
Second, that we accept staff recommendations on the remaining unemployment insurance cases on docket 41, except for those cases shown on this list.
I agree to accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 41. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. Let's pause for a moment to allow staff to enter. Item 8, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding adult education and literacy performance funding benchmarks for program year 2019 through 2020.
Good morning, Chair Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Gunderson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, my name is Fabiana Ramirez, Program Specialist with Adult Education and Literacy. TWC Rule Chapter 800.68 provides that TWC set performance accountability benchmarks that AEL grant recipients must meet in order to access up to 10% of their allocated funding. On April 30th, the Commission approved allocations for AEL program year 1920, which included the holdback for performance-based funding totaling nearly $1.5 million. The Commission must establish a performance-based criteria for this holdback. Additionally, House Bill 1949, which passed this past 86th legislative session, introduces a measure related to enrollment and credential achievement performance in high school equivalency or ability to benefit programs, which must now be included as part of performance-based funding criteria. Proposed criteria for performance-based criteria outlined in your notebook materials are as follows. Both categories A and B are similar to criteria from previous AEL program years. Category A will allow grant recipients to access 33.33% of program year 1920 performance-based funding allocation for meeting 65% of total participants served by the end of the second quarter. Category B allows grant recipients to access the remaining 66.67% of this allocation for meeting measurable skill gains targets. Category C criteria implements HB 1949 as provided in statute and will be awarded to grant recipients out of program year 2020 funds as designated by the Commission after the end of the first quarter in the next program year. Category D provides that staff will make future recommendations to the Commission for capacity building milestones towards meeting HB 1949 for implementation during program year 2019. Today, staff seeks direction on identifying and assigning criteria for categories A and B for grant recipients to access performance-based funding for program year 2019 to 2020 and assigning criteria for category C in order to implement HB 1949. With that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Alvarez.
No questions, Chairman.
Commissioner Demerson.
No questions here.
Is there a motion here?
Chairman, I move that we approve AEL performance funding benchmarks for program year 2019 through 2020 as discussed by staff and instruct staff to bring back to the Commission recommendations regarding performance criteria for the awards of funds based on milestones towards meeting HB 1949's performance standards. Additionally, staff will develop and bring back rules related to this measure.
Second motion.
It's been moved and seconded. I concur the motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, item number 9, foundational skills discussion paper, will be postponed to a future commission meeting to allow additional time for staff analysis. That brings us to item number 10, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding local workforce development area revising performance expectations for board contract year 2019.
Morning. For the record, Adam Leonard, Operational Insight. As you know, TWC implemented a new work in Texas system going on about 7 weeks ago now. And the system has proven to be very popular with a lot of our users, especially the employers and the job seekers. But on the back end, there are certain data differences between the way that the new system works and the way the old system works. And it's making it difficult for us to kind of run this measure that counts the numbers of employers receiving workforce assistance consistently across the period, meaning the pre-old WIT, post-new WIT data. We're going to get it resolved eventually, but given the time frame that we're working on for year-end reporting, we're making a recommendation to change the performance period backwards, so sliding it from what would have been October through September back to August through July, so that we have 12 complete months of data from the same system, and therefore it's an apples-to-apples comparison. And coupled with that, we would take a weighted average of the target from last year and this year in order to scale expectations appropriately. And the discussion paper shows how that would work on page 2. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Alvarez.
No questions, Chairman.
Commissioner Demerson.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the modifications to the board contract year 2019 employee workforce assistance performance period and local targets using the methodology recommended by staff.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank you.
I don't show any discussion items from staff for item 11, so we'll continue to item 12, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding approval of local workforce development board nominees.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. I'm Shanta Williams with the Workforce Development Division, and before you for consideration and approval are Workforce Board nominees for Workforce Solutions Alamo, Concho Valley, North Central Texas, Golden Crescent, Middle Rio Grande, Coastal Bend, Rural Capital, and South Plains. If there are no questions, we ask that all nominees be approved.
All right, Commissioner Alvarez, comments or questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Demerson, comments or questions?
No questions.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the board nominees for Alamo, Concho Valley, North Central Texas, Golden Crescent, Middle Rio Grande, Coastal Bend, Rural Capital Area, and South Plains as recommended by staff.
Second.
I concur with the motion.
Thank
Okay, let's see. Tom says there's nothing for him under item 13. Ed, do you have anything to report today?
Two things today. First of all, I'm getting rid of one of the two hats I've been wearing and have selected Randy Townsend to serve as my Deputy Executive Director, effective yesterday. He's a very good player. So now he gets to wear two hats as the interim CIO and the Deputy Executive Director. One of us eventually will get rid of a hat. So the other thing I have is we received a recognition from the governor on Ombudsman Day. In case you didn't know that there was an Ombudsman Day, there is on the 10th of October. We have a great staff that in our ombudsman shops, both at an agency level and in UI, that every day work with our customers to make sure that issues that they raise are being addressed and successfully handled. And I was going to take the opportunity, if you'll indulge me, Mr. Chairman, to read this proclamation that we received from the governor to all to whom these presents shall come. Greetings. Know ye that this official recognition is presented to all observing Ombudsman Day, October 10th, 2019. An ombudsman, through ethical, impartial, and competent conduct, maintains a mutual trust and accountability with the citizens of Texas. This allows them to serve as a representative of the people and assist them with resolving disagreements, complaints, confusions, and questions that arise as they work with large entities. Ombudsman programs come in many forms and adhere to standards of practice depending on their role and function in helping Texans address a broad range of issues. The fair and effective resolution of such issues is in the best interest of all parties involved. I encourage all Texans to become familiar with ombudsman offices and make use of these critical services. First Lady Cecilia Abbott joins me in wishing you the best. In testimony, I have signed my name and signed Governor Greg Abbott. So we have our ombudsman present to receive these.
Wonderful. You've got to come forward because they're going to take a bunch of pictures, I'm pretty sure.
Go down.
And sir, with that, I have nothing else to report.
Thank you, Mr. Serna. All right, the time is 9:39. The Texas Workforce Commission is now going into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.0711 concerning pending or contemplated litigation titled Harris County District Attorney's Office versus Texas Workforce Commission and Tiffany Johnson, and to discuss the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the executive director, internal auditor, executive staff, or other personnel pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074A1. All right, the executive session is now concluded, and the time is 10:19. Do we have a motion coming out of executive session?
Yes, Chairman. I move that we approve the filing of an appeal of the Harris County District Court order and decision in litigation styled as cause number 2017-52728, Harris County District Attorney's Office versus Texas Workforce Commission and Tiffany Johnson.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I concur with the motion, so we will approve the filing of an appeal of the Harris County District Court order and decision in litigation styled as cause number 201752728 Harris County District Attorney's Office versus Texas Workforce Commission, Tiffany Johnson. Is there any other order of business that needs to come before us?
And congratulations to Randy.
Oh, yeah.
Do that. He's not here, but congratulations.
Well done. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
I concur. We're adjourned.